All right, everyone. Hello and welcome. The clock has struck 11 a.m. where I am, which means we're up and running. How are you? Are you well? If you're in Sydney, I feel for you because it is rubbish out there right now. I think it's just stopped tipping down, but only just. So anyway, wherever you are, give us a thumbs up if you're doing well. Let us know. We've got plenty of people joining in. Give us a quick thumbs up. You're doing well. If you're new here and you haven't been to one of our little webinars before, then welcome. My name's David and I lead our customer success team at Shopper Intelligence in Australia in this beautiful country. And as ever, we're joined by Andrew Arnold, who is our country lead for the beautiful country of New Zealand. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello, David. How you doing? Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, everybody. And you haven't got a monopoly on rubbish conditions, David, because Auckland is looking pretty rubbish today as well.
Sucks, mate. Sucks, mate. But at least we're on the same boat. Right then, let's get going. Let's get going. Now, big question today. Are you thinking about your category and your categories in the right way? We speak to a lot of retailers and a lot of category experts. And sometimes, Andrew, do we not come across what you might call long-held beliefs and long-held assumptions in the category? And so today, I guess, is a little bit about challenging some of those long-held assumptions. Start off with something a little whimsical. One of those is about when it is appropriate to start merchandising for Christmas in store. A little bit whimsical, but we'll start off with something light. I can just see a little message here coming up. Oh, here we go. So quick one, just to warm us up. When do you think, what is your assumption about when it's appropriate to start putting Christmas stock into store?
If you're my wife, April.
Never too early for her. Never too
Mhm.
early. Let's see what we get coming up on the chat. And whilst we leave that running, mid-October. Thank you, Nicole. November. See some more modest ideas. Bex now, November. I did see mince pies popping up the other day. That's probably why this was on my mind. So November for sure. Okay, pretty consistent.
Mhm.
Not October then. Anyway, point is, we all have assumptions and we all have beliefs. And the idea about today and about what we do, I guess, for a living is to challenge those beliefs and to put something solid, something that's a little more tangible behind that, so that when you've got to go out into the trade, when you've got to put a proposal on the table, whether it's internal or external, you've got something a little bit more robust that you can throw out there. Now, the other thing that comes to mind, and you might think about this as well when you think, folks, about your interaction with Shopper Insights, is we hear quite a lot at the moment that people getting this idea that they're going to rest one set of insights or another set of insights. And that's understandable because business is about difficult challenges and making difficult decisions. But at the same time, it's very risky. It's very risky right now because things are changing so rapidly. And also because when we hear from suppliers that they're taking a dip into Shopper, a dip is a dip. And a dip isn't much use in 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months. And one thing that we can definitely tell you for sure right off the bat is that retailers don't see Shopper Insights in that way, do they, Andrew?
No, no, they definitely don't. For them, it's an integral part of what they do. So coming in with a short-term view of it is not something which the retailer is looking for. They want to understand how things are going over a significant period of time. They're interested in trends. They're interested in how is the category evolving from a shopper point of view. So
Mm.
snapshots are not necessarily that useful in those kinds of discussions.
No, they have their place, of course,
Of course.
as many different pieces of the insights framework have over the course of time. One other piece of, I think, important insight to underscore there is the fact that from a shopper insights perspective and shopper intelligence, we have worked with Coles, with Woolworths in Australia, New Zealand, and with IGA for over 10 years now. And there aren't many data sources and data providers and insights providers out there that can say that they have that consistency across the market. So there's something going on there around shopper insights and the value of understanding what and how and why shoppers are doing what they're doing. Now, let's jump into a quick poll. I'm just going to build on that and launch this one and see how you feel. I did put this on LinkedIn not once but twice, and didn't get seen by many people. So I'm not giving up. I'm going to have another go. Very simply, have you got it down pat? And when I say it, I mean your understanding of shoppers and shopper needs in your category. Be as honest as you can. How well does your team understand shopper needs in your category? Got some work to do. Nothing wrong with that. That's what we're here for. We're pretty solid. In other words, you know, we know we've got some good level of understanding and good level of application, or top end, 5-star, got it licked. I can tell you now, folks, nobody's going for the got it licked option. But we'll leave, I tell a lie. We have got one in there. But we'll leave that running for a little bit whilst we, I think, get stuck into our first example. So as you know, folks, Insights from the Isles is all about what Andrew and I see as we enjoy our lives dipping in and out of supermarkets and taking photos of pretty much everything that we can possibly see. We stick it on LinkedIn, the stuff that does well, we bring forward to these webinars, and we add a little bit more context. We compare and we contrast. We talk about what's going on in New Zealand. We talk about Australia, and we try and add a little bit of extra value. So hopefully that's what you're here for. And that is exactly where we're going to go with our first example from Mr. Arnold, which is on screen now. Oh, no, it isn't. It is now.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. So this one is, I really like seeing this in stores when I was out and about. This is actually from, I think, around about sort of late-ish August from memory. This is all about challenging an assumption as well, which is kind of a recently held one that the shopper, and this is all because of the fact that we've been through quite a lengthy period of cost of living pressure and inflation, which of course is coming down now, and interest rates, which were high, which are starting to come down now as well. But that quite strongly held assumption during the course of those couple of years was that the shopper doesn't really care about anything other than price and just simply stocking up when something is cheap. So things like occasion-based activations and things like occasion-based missions were not a thing. Now, I can absolutely 100% vouch for the fact that that is not the case. Because when you interview tens and thousands of shoppers and ask them, why do you do what you do? What is the occasion that you're buying for? General stock up is part of that. But over 40% of all shoppers in New Zealand are still buying for a specific meal occasion in mind. And that is why when I saw this, I was like, yes, that is exactly the sort of thing that you want to be doing to try and tap into that kind of mindset. So this one was brilliant for me on a whole number of levels. I mean, firstly, of course, there was that piece around occasions. So, 40% of shoppers wanting to be or thinking about buying for a specific meal occasion. So that's the first thing. The second thing is this particular category, which in this particular example is mostly canned vegetables, but there's a few other bits and pieces on there as well. This type of category actually is really all about the shopper wanting a bit more of excitement, a bit more theatre, a bit more pizzazz going on there. And so that obviously fits that pretty well. And the second, final thing actually is about the fact that this category is very likely to be bought with the family unit in mind. So that shopper who looks at this and goes, yes, that's dinner. That is exactly what this type of display is trying to tap into, that mindset of the shopper being, what actually is for dinner tonight? Oh, that's a really good idea. Plus, everything is there that I need. All the ingredients are there. The recipe is there, because that's what the QR code is up in the top there. A helpful picture to show you what it looks like. And all of this on this particular day was for $12. So, I mean, what is there not to like about this kind of activation? So that's why it caught my eye. But it's also because it was a really strong example of basically torpedoing that assumption that people are not thinking about occasions at the moment because of what's going on from an economic point of view.
Yeah, totally love it. Yeah, spot on. Obviously, got a lot of traction on LinkedIn as well, which is a testament, I think, to the fact that, in spite of how simple you might argue that is as an activation and how straightforward, I having said that, I take that back to an extent because having multiple products on a unit like that does bring its challenges, I know, operationally. But having said that, the meal deal is still a strong option. I would go ahead and say, from the information that we have about shoppers in Australia and New Zealand, it's underutilized in Australia and New Zealand, certainly compared to what we see in somewhere like the UK. Poms can't get enough of a meal deal, and they do incredibly well. But What about those assumptions? So the assumption that you were calling out, I think there was a couple actually, Andrew, but the big one that resonated with me was this idea that it's all about value, it's all about price. People not thinking about occasions, not thinking about a meal. There's another one that we hear quite often as well, isn't there? Which is that Australia, New Zealand, synonymous, homogenous markets. If you've got some Aussie insights, you've pretty much got New Zealand covered. And I had to check this one with you because I was like, really, is this what you're seeing? But what was your value for buying for a meal occasion in New Zealand? Was about 41%.
41%.
41%. Okay. Anybody out there want to hazard a guess? What proportion of Australian shoppers go in with any kind of meal occasion in store? They're buying the average category with a meal occasion in mind. Feel free to stick it in the chat. It's not the same as New Zealand, not by a long shot. In fact, it's all the way down at 30%. Oh, Anne-Marie, you were so close. 35.
22 there.
22. Yeah, it's much different. Now, and obviously that's an all categories level. So you start going down into individual categories and you see something much different. But what I love as well, Andrew, you called out the extent to which these categories, I think canned veg is bought for the family. Canned veg in Australia all the way down at 57 bought for a family. I think you're up at, was it 20?
22.
22. So again,
Yeah.
big difference. Big assumption. If you happen to be thinking, oh, we can roll something out, we got some good insights from one country, we can use that elsewhere. Butter and margarine, number one product, well, number one category bought for family, and Mexican food is number two in Australia, if you're interested. So anybody dealing in either of those categories, you might want to think about how you position around buying for family.
Yeah, I think the final thing I was point at this is that because we often show something like this, just in if we're talking with clients or whatever, is that okay? But what if I don't work in a food category? What if I'm actually a non-food category or something of that nature? Those things don't apply to me. Of course, I'm being bought for a general stock up. But what I would say to that is that shoppers are still thinking about types of missions, not necessarily occasions, but types of missions when they're shopping for non-food as well. So don't discount the fact that your product, your category, might actually be bought for something other than simply just buying it to put away in a cupboard. Now, the most obvious example, and again, I think I've mentioned this before, but it's worth saying it again. If you think about nappies, that is one of the classic categories that people think, and people just assume that people buy it to stock it up and just shove it in a cupboard and use it as they use it. Now, for all of you who have kids out there, think back to the time where you went to the cupboard to get a nappy and there were none there.
Mm.
Suddenly, you have to go off to the store and you are in an emergency buying mission. Different kettle of fish, completely different mindset. Price doesn't really factor into the conversation. It's about what's there because I need it now. So that's a different mindset to simply just going down and saying, okay, what's the cheapest box this week or the cheapest format this week and the thing that I use.
Yeah, 100%. Just before we move on to the next one, so a great example there. And folks, you get this, I know, but obviously what we do in the interest of creating a conversation and having some dialogue around these things, we pick out individual examples. But let's not forget the idea is laddering this up, because ultimately if what is or any other brand has a very successful activation in store, it clearly has a beneficial commercial impact. But the other thing it does is that by doing something like that based on good, solid shopper insights, it's going to build your credibility. It's going to build your credibility as a brand. It's going to build your credibility as a team, whether it's category, commercial, coming together and partnering with a retailer to do something good and effective in store. So there's a kind of higher purpose behind the insights. Yes, you want that individual activation clearly to work well and to be a commercial success. But what it does over a period of time is, as a business, your retail partners start going, yeah, we go to these guys because they know their shit. They're putting forward good, solid stories, good, solid arguments that are based on facts, based on information. And as a result of that, we're seeing good results. So it's important, I think, to ladder that back up. And it's equally as important to have a look at some nice, interesting examples. The next of which I'm going to flash up. Now, this is another interesting one that I saw. I don't know if you get my pun, a little tricky. Did you get it? You got it, Andrew?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, nice. Okay. So I was looking for hummus, depending on how you like to spell it. And this was actually a little video. You can see it on my LinkedIn profile. just in this snapshot, I think that encapsulates it really. Lots and lots of yellow tickets, multiple different multi-buys and specials and amounts off in terms of saving. Very little, if anything at all, to distinguish between different brands and types of hummus. Is there any difference? Should I be concerned about any difference? Should I even consider there to be any difference? Very hard to say. Now, what I definitely hate to do is that sample of one business where I go, well, I didn't like it very much, so it must be rubbish. And that's why we have the insights. So, interestingly enough, chilled dips, 153rd out of 180, 190 categories with shoppers in Australia for overall satisfaction. Layout, interestingly enough, shelf layout, underperforms versus its department, the chill department, by over 5%. And this is the real kicker. So coming back to assumptions, if the assumption were, and by the way, I have no malice towards anybody who was involved in this. We're just calling things out because we want to try and help improve things and reduce the opportunity for misses. But in terms of price assurance in the category, this category, chilled dips, is rank bottom on performance in the entire Australian grocery store. So as an encapsulation of saying, well, we need value, we need to put forward value. Yeah, absolutely. Perfectly legitimate argument. In this category, there's an opportunity being missed because price assurance isn't there. It's very important in this category. And ultimately, what have we done? Created some confusion, created some uncertainty, by price points, probably in my eyes, that they didn't know much else about what was going on. Andrew, your thoughts, mate?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is a classic example. I mean, you say of the fact that price assurance ranks bottom of the entire Australian grocery universe in terms of satisfaction on price assurance. Clearly, that means that if you carpet this category with 2 for 8s and 20% offs and 30% offs, that's missing the mark. That's not what the shop is looking for. So if this is something, again, this is just a general comment, right? If this is retailer driven or if this is supplier driven, either way, it doesn't actually matter. The point is that that's not how this shopper shops that category. That's not what they're looking for. So you need to demonstrate value to them in a different way. You don't demonstrate value in this category by cutting the guts out of it and promoting it as cheaply as you possibly can, because the shopper doesn't think that way.
Yeah, yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there perfectly as well, and it's very similar ultimately to your bottom line on the previous example, which was we have to deliver value. Yeah, sure, we have to deliver value. Now you've hit the nail on the head there exactly again by saying value manifests in different ways for different shoppers in different categories, and this is the beauty of having a total store view, being able to compare the importance of price assurance versus the role of meal occasions from category number one all the way down through to 150 and 190, depending on how many you've got. But it's a total store view, and that gives you the relativity, and that means you can go forth and put forward the most compelling position that's going to help you to partner, if you're a supplier, with a retailer. And if you're a retailer, I know we've got some on the line today, going to help you put forward the most compelling strategy to your business internally when the business says it's all about value, and you go, yeah, absolutely, and this is how we deliver value best in this category.
And the other thing I would say is that, we didn't come down in the last shower. We're not so naive to suggest that you go and talk to a retailer as a supplier and suddenly that's going to change overnight. But all this is about highlighting the fact that maybe the way it's been done for the last however many years is not actually the right way to go about it. And you start the conversation. So hopefully 6 months from now, 12 months from now, you can actually change the mechanic. You can change the conversation that's happening at shelf with your shoppers.
Yeah. Yeah, Andrew, mate, I think you're on fire this morning. I couldn't agree more. It's a journey, it's a road, and it's how you move. Not easy. It's a rocky road at times, we know that, but it's how you move from that more kind of transactional scenario and situation where it's activation, deal, promotion, offer, cycle after cycle after cycle, to shifting gear into something as a business, as a brand that's going to hopefully get you to a better place. There's no guarantees in life, but as I say, pull it back. It's about taking the information that's available, using it effectively to advance your story. Just final one before we move on. Interestingly enough, the desire for new products and NPD in chilled dips is very, very high. Okay, we asked that question as well, and it comes out in the top 30 in Australia, but not at the expense of navigation. So there's a dual thing that needs to be reflected upon. And in fact, if you include value, you include NPD, okay, we've got to make those two things balance, but we also have to make sure we've got the navigation right, because fundamentally, if we don't make a shopper, we're not going to make a consumer, and then it doesn't matter how good the offer was or how good the deal was. So NPD, very high score, and this is where you have to unpick some of these things. You go, well, if the request for NPD is high, then how do we sort out the navigation and the layout shelf? Well, that's the job to do. That's the thing that needs to be achieved, and it's very clear in this category in particular that there are some assumptions there that could be sharpened up. Ready for the next one? Let's do it.
Yeah, and while you're bringing that up, I just want to just quickly address the comment that was, or the question that was asked by Anne Marie, and that is around what I mentioned before about nappies being on an emergency mission potentially. So she's asked the question around, so does convenience come into play in that situation? So, for example, would they go to their regular store, or would they go to something which is actually closer potentially? And the simple answer to that is yes, that does come into play. So when you are in an emergency point of mindset, emergency point of view, for sure you may not necessarily go to the store that you normally go to. So that also has implications for every store that's in that bucket. Is your range the right sort of range? Is the way you display the right sort of way to do the category? Is your pricing hierarchy also correct in that sense? Because it's not necessarily people that's going to be looking for the cheapest. They may be coming in on a mission that they've never come to your store before. And how do you actually convert that purchaser? You need to do it right. You may actually get to keep them. So for sure, convenience comes into play there.
Yep, lovely. Pleasure, Anne-Marie. If you've got any other questions, folks, stick them in the chat. And we've got some other guys on the team. Maybe if you're a shopper intelligence team member, give us a hi. Let us know you're there on the chat. And any other questions, stick them in. I'll tell you what, I forgot about the poll. Let me drop that in now.
Oh yeah, better do that.
Better share the results. We've done a poll. Everyone's participated in the poll. Hey, Kev's raised his hand. So how well does your team understand shoppers' needs, shoppers' desires in your category? Got work to do. So I appreciate the honesty. Thank you, folks. 50% of our audience today says got work to do, which, to be fair, is natural, right? Life is a learning journey. We're pretty solid, say another 46%, and 4% say we've got it licked. So good for you. Fantastic. Great. Now, if you're not in the got it licked territory, or even if you are, I guess, look, if you've got it licked today, doesn't mean you got it licked tomorrow and in 3 months and in 6 months. If you're pretty solid, fantastic. What's the next step? Where do you need to go to get it to the next level? And if you've got work to do, brilliant. It's a great place to be to enjoy success in the coming 12 months. Maybe you're on the right track. Maybe you got to do something different. Maybe you know what that is. If we can help at all, reach out to us. Let us know. That's what we are here to do. So appreciate your getting involved with that. I'm going to stop sharing that. And let's go into example number 3. Where are we going? We're going back to you, aren't we, Matt?
Yes, we are.
Here we are. What have we got here?
Well, what we have here is a little bit of a conundrum. So I saw this when I was actually down in Dunedin, just doing a bit of store visits in between meetings. And what I first came across actually was the lovely looking display down on the far right-hand corner for Arnold shapes. The second thing that I noticed was actually, because I turned around, and that end, which you see in the top right-hand corner, that was about, I think, 2 aisles away from me when I saw that one. So straight away I saw those and I was like, that's pretty good. And then I thought, what does the main shelf look like? I had no idea why that popped into my head, but I went down to the main shelf, and this is what I saw. I saw basically if I'm being charitable, maybe a 55% full main shelf, but it's probably a bit less than that, whatever the actual percentage is. And that got me thinking, is that okay? Is it actually a good idea for the both of the displays to be looking absolutely mint, brilliant, really, really strong, but the main shelf to not be. Now, this is where I go into a little bit of story mode here, because I've been in the industry for, showing my age now, nearly 30 years. So I know I only look like I'm about 28, but honestly, I've been in the industry about 30 years. When I first started in the industry, I started on the shop floor of my local Woolworths, and the head of Woolworths supermarkets at the time was a guy by the name of Dave Chambers. So hopefully anybody from New Zealand on the call remembers Dave. Yeah, he was a great bloke, but he also had a saying, and the saying was, "We can never have poos." Now, for those of you who don't know what that means, poos was promotional out of stocks. So he hated that. So, and that's been the mantra all the way through. That's been the assumption that has been so widely held throughout grocery for my entire time of doing it, is that you can never let a promotional display run down. You always feed it with stock from the main location.
Andrew, 2 secs, mate. I've got to ask this question because I've never heard of that before. Not from New Zealand. Can you tell me in the chat, is that a uniquely Kiwi expression?
Maybe it is, but that's what Dave Chambers used to say.
Is Dave Chambers uniquely?
Yeah, Dave Chambers promotional out of stocks. Can't have poos. So this got me thinking about this. Is this actually the kind of situation that is okay? So went into the data. I had no idea when I took the photos. So when I came back, had a look at the data, and the answer actually is that this is not a good scenario. And the reason behind that is actually because, first and foremost, significantly more people buy from the main location than they do from an off location. Off locations are extremely strong in this category at getting people to notice them. But ultimately, the purchasing decision is made at shelf. So in that situation, this is actually a case where you never want to have promotional out of stock on the display at any rate, right? But what this means is that this store, this particular scenario, needs to have enough stock to feed all 3 locations and not be robbing Peter to pay Paul. And the reason behind that is, and there's a couple of numbers, so just bear with me here. It is a shopper that's highly unlikely to switch on brand. It is a shopper which is extremely likely to switch on flavor. They're unlikely to buy from an off-location display, but they're extremely likely to be triggered by one. So you take that, you add that up, and basically what you get a scenario is that the shopper sees the brand and goes, "Oh yeah, I like shapes." They go to the display, their preferred flavor isn't there. They go to the main location to buy the one that they like the most. So in this case, you need to have enough stock to make sure all 3 locations are working, which torpedoes the assumption that you take from the main shelf to feed them the promotional display, because that's where the action happens. And, I visited the store about 2:00 in the afternoon. The displays were perfect. The shelf was looking like that.
There's some interesting comments coming in. I don't know if you can see them, but somebody's throwing out
No,
something which I think you mentioned to me the other day. But basically borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. Is the store replenishing from the shelf to go out to the display? In other words, not enough, as you're saying, to service all locations, right?
Yeah. So essentially, there's not. This is a classic example of a category where the stock weight needs to be upped, because you need to have all 3 locations full, because because people are more likely to make their decision at the shelf as to what they actually buy, or actually execute the purchasing actually at the shelf. Okay. But the display triggers them to go, "That's right, I want some shapes." But maybe the one they're actually looking for is not on the display. So naturally enough, they go down to the shelf to actually make them buy the thing they like. So none of these questions that came through here. So in my opinion, is this shop at shelf as application very depending on the category? Yes, absolutely, 100% it does. So there is a whole bunch of categories that are the same as savory crackers, and there's a whole bunch where, if this situation was to arise, it's not a problem. The devil's in the detail. So which of the categories where actually this situation's fine, and which are the categories where this situation is a red flag? Red flag in the sense that it's not going to work for the shopper, but an opportunity, because that's the sort of category you go to the retailer and say, "Order more. We need to have more stock weight in order to make sure this thing works."
That's it. That's it. Great questions, by the way. Thank you. And it all comes back to this whole point. Why did we ask this poll question? How well do you understand, and does your team understand what shoppers are doing and how they behave in category? So great, you know how much and how well or otherwise this promotion performed when you look back at the numbers that happened last week and the week before. And then you come around the next year and you want to cycle it and so on and so forth. And the pressure is there to do that. That group have got work to do can advance by looking at some of these sorts of things, some of that nuance. Where are people actually buying this category from? How planned or unplanned are they actually? In other words, how likely are they actually to even consider buying something from a secondary display, let alone where it is in store? Are they buying? Who are they buying for? Who's the intended consumer? What's going on in the shopper's mind? What was the occasion? All these components that we've touched on so far. Then we get into the shelf. What's important to me as a shopper when I look at the shelf? Is it price? Is it a bigger notion of value? And if it is, what's in value? Is it authenticity? Is it health? Is it quality? Is it premium ingredients? All these things are how you help support and drive your team and your business to that next level where we're pretty solid. And it gives you this bigger picture focus rather than just getting into that specific activation and activity. And we've got it. You work hard on that, and you get the commercials right, and there's a lot of work goes into the stacks and the visuals and everything else. And there's also, on top of that, this opportunity to be a guide and to be a partner to your retailers, build that credibility, move away from transactional. And time after time, it's the shopper dimension that helps you to do that. Got one here, Anne-Marie, the old stack it high,
Stack them high, watch it fly.
Yeah.
In other words, the pack and save mentality.
Yeah.
And the answer is yes, absolutely, 100%. Seasonality will affect. Seasonality will have an effect in some categories, but for sure. So again, it's about the assumption. It's about, this is a long held assumption that you've got to make sure that the display is king, and the shelf doesn't matter if you have a display, or it matters less. No, it's probably not. It doesn't matter. It just matters a little bit less. So yes, that assumption holds true in some categories, but in others, it doesn't.
Now, I don't know if I actually shared this with everyone. Maybe I did. If I did, apologies. I'm
poll.
sharing it again. Yeah, the
yeah,
poll
no,
results.
no, you shared that.
Right, okay. We'll get rid of that one. I'm going to flash up another one. And because we love market research, I thought let's just quickly do a little bit of market research. If you're a first timer at IFTA, Insights from the Aisles, would you like another one before Christmas? And if you're coming back again and again, my guess is that you probably would. But I thought let's ask the question anyway. If I can. Why can't it? Why doesn't it let me? Stop sharing. Launch this one. Here we go. I love Zoom. I don't really love Zoom. Okay, very simple. Would you like to see us do another one of these before Christmas or not? Very simple. Leave that one running in the background, and let the audience decide. Andrew? Let the chips land where they may.
Absolutely.
Okay. Last one, and this was pretty big on LinkedIn, and I'm going to show it now. Pretty big, and yet on one level, such a simple thing. Now, it got massive amount of traction. If you happen to have the opportunity to stop by the relayed Woolworths in Warringah Mall near me right now up in Brookvale, have a look. It's very interesting. It's very significant. Lots of categories have moved. And as a result of that, somebody decided it would be helpful, useful, valuable to shoppers to put this little board up. I think there were a couple of them dotted around. Very simple in some regards. And what people have called out in the many comments that they put against this post was how simple it is, how effective it is, the fact that the numbers of the aisles appear to have been sort of drawn in so they could change over time. I don't know if anyone from Woolies knows if this is a permanent thing. Please let us know if you're on the call now. My guess is it's probably, unfortunately, I would imagine it's a more of a temporary solution whilst the relay becomes more understood by shoppers in this store. But it would be lovely if it did stick around. Now, many things got called out in amongst all of these comments that were made, and it ranged from "this is fabulous and amazing and exactly what every shopper wants," and I'm not exaggerating here, Andrew, pretty much to the other end of the spectrum. And I'm going to somebody's devil's advocate in a minute, who said, "I'll play devil's advocate and say signage doesn't make any difference to shoppers. We've tried lots of different solutions, and it's all a waste of time. What they want is staff." Yeah, we've got a view on both of those, and we've got a view on it across different categories. But I'll shut up for a second because, Andrew, your perspective on this, please, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I actually did a similar post actually just by accident um, around my local. So you were looking at Woolworths Moringa more, and I was looking at my local, which is New Wood Long Bay. So
Yeah.
the story being, I'd been away in the States for a couple of weeks on a family holiday, and then I come back, and of course, what happens when you come back is that they've changed the store around. So I saw something similar, that the store had actually gone to the trouble of just putting little labels up saying, "This is where this used to be. You're looking for it. It's actually over here now." So the same thing applies really.
Yeah.
But again, sample size of one, I believe that the location and signage and navigation in store is extremely important. But I also base that on the fact that, again, when you ask tens of thousands of shoppers what matters to them, if you look at New Zealand grocery, well, let's just say location is more important. Where the category is located in store in New Zealand is more important across every single category, the category average, than premium. It's more important than sustainability. It's more important than innovation. It's more important than New Zealand made. So you can't really say that where things are located and navigation and signage to help people understand where things are isn't important, because it actually is. And it's more important than some other things that are held up as being things that everyone thinks is important right now. So, I'll tell you about the sustainability angle. It's not even close in terms of how important location of the category is versus how sustainable it is. And of course, that will be different for categories, but I'm just saying across the board. It's actually just below promotions in terms of importance. And I'm talking literally, tenths of a percentage point below the importance of offers. So this stuff really matters. And hands up anybody, and you don't have to put it in the chat if you feel like it, but hands up anybody who shops at a store and they've noticed, hang on, they've made a change. And you go, oh, why'd they do that? It's just human nature to get used to things in your local store. And then when things change and you don't know where things are, get your hackles up.
Yeah. Again, on fire, mate, I have to say. We had a couple of hands up. I think Holly's got a hand up because she's noticed what you just said rather than she's just saying hi. She's in the other room, actually. Go and ask her in a minute. So what I was going to say, actually, just to come back to the point, was yes. That's completely. I've thrown myself there. Sorry, folks. That was silly of me. It's all about these assumptions, as we said. Now, I love the devil's advocate. So thank you, devil's advocates out there. Keep them coming. Keep the comments in, because it's great. But what I loved about that comment in particular was, we've tried all sorts of solutions, or we've tried everything under the sun, kind of thing. And I just go, well, have you really? I mean, you might have tried a lot, but again, I'm going to come back to the idea of, just to play devil's advocate, in which category and at which time and for which shoppers, because we know very well, to your point you just made very well, Andrew, that the demand for these things is not consistent across all categories. And what you want to dial up in one category is absolutely not what you want to dial up in the other. For example, in Australia, 1 in 7 roughly shoppers call out signage as their most significantly required improvement in store, the thing that they would most like to see improve at store. But those that over-index, those categories that over-index, are at much more like 1 in 3 shoppers. And that would be things like allergy, sun care, organic snacks in Australia. So 1 in 7 on average. Obviously, there's some categories below that as well. But what about the categories that sit well above that? 1 in 3 shoppers in those categories I've just called out want to see better signage. And in terms of location overall, like, where is it? Can I find it? Again, we've got categories that over-index on that by a significant amount. when we ask shoppers. Baby wipes, nappies, a lot of baby associated stuff, probably for obvious reasons. As I can attest to, if you've got a baby out there, it's pretty stressful if you can't find that stuff. Flavored milks, interestingly. But then the inverse of that is, how well do shoppers in those categories think that location is performing? How well are we doing out there? And there's some things right down the bottom there: snacks, organic snacks, snack pack fruit, salt and pepper. Salt and pepper, for goodness sake. How it doesn't get much more staple than that, but people can't find it, which is inherently a problem.
Yeah, they can't find it because do they think it should be with herbs and spices or should it be with baking ingredients?
Yeah, yeah. So, and you've also made another point that was in my notes, but making life easier. Now, this is obviously a store-wide solution, but then go back to that hummus example. Where was the support to make life easier for shoppers at shelf? Okay, within range, because we look at this stuff day in, day out. I know you do if you're watching this webinar. God knows Andrew and I stare at these shelves. Clearly, you can see we take a lot of photos. So we look at this stuff week in, week out. But shoppers don't necessarily do that. They have the normal people out there who are shopping in stores. And we also know there's a lot of flack out there at the moment, and the journos are going nuts for this, about trust, how dare I say mistrust, about honesty, and all these little things like this. This will have a massive impact on that. It will have a huge impact on. That's helpful. It's not a game changer, but it's just helpful. How does that look like in those categories where it matters the most? How does that look? And again, this is about saying, look, we've got some information, Mr. and Mrs. Cole, Woolies, IGA, Aldi, whoever it is you're speaking to as a brand, and saying we're a business that wants to try to get to a bigger picture perspective and try to get beyond the transactional and see if we can do things progressively better in the category time after time after time. Have a look at this. What can we do? Understand the operational challenges. Andrew said it didn't come down in the last shower, but what can we do? How can we bring ops into this as well and find solutions that are going to make the biggest difference? Anything else to add, Andrew, on that one?
No, I think that covers it off very, very well, David. I mean, there is one question that came through in the chat. I just want to quickly just raise there, and that's a great question from Steve. Is this actually a way of taking shoppers off autopilot? And I assume that you're probably talking there, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I assume you're talking about changing things up to take shoppers off autopilot. And again, in some categories, it all comes down to which category we're talking about. In some categories, that's a good thing. And in some categories, you don't go there. You just don't, because they're all about autopilot and that's all they care about. And they just want to get the thing they want and get out. So it's not about interrupting them. But again, it's category by category basis.
Is the nuance. One thing I've noticed they've done very, very interestingly in this particular store is they've put biscuits, teas, and coffees all in the same aisle. Haven't seen that before. They seem like natural bedfellows, do they not? But I haven't seen that before. So the interruption plays up to a point, doesn't it? And that's where these insights come in. If shoppers are satisfied in those domains, in those categories already, maybe not something you want to mess around with too much. If they are registering that they're dissatisfied versus whatever benchmark you want to look at, the department, the store, then it's something that you might want to elevate on the agenda and try and act against more quickly. Now, the result of the poll is resounding, Andrew. I won't share this one, but we've got another one to do before Christmas. So thank you.
Oh, do we? Okay. All right then.
It's great. Thank you very much. Appreciate your input, and it obviously indicates at least that you're getting some value from these things. So thank you very much for that. Thank you, James. Your comment, good thought starters. There's an element of working within the perimeters of retailers. Yes, clean shelves, no pause, etc. We could talk for a while about that, couldn't we, Andrew?
Oh yeah.
100%, James. And there are no guarantees in life. Not naive enough, and I've been a retailer. Andrew, you've been a retailer. You've been on both sides of the desk. There are challenges here. What can one do is try and put the best, most credible, most reliable information forward. And if it just so happens that your buyer and your category manager on the other side of the table is looking at the same stuff, that's a pretty big opportunity and a pretty big win to cut through the friction and the difficulty of trying to get on the same page with different sets of information. So that's one big bonus that you can look forward to with Shop Intelligence if you have that in your back pocket. Last but not least, folks, stick a yes in the chat now. A lot of people do this, not a problem telling what it is. Last time out, I shared some of the UK insights, the UK highlights from Sainsbury's, I think it was, after the show. And just to prove that Andrew never rests either, he's been to the States recently on his hollybobs, and he has some really interesting in-store images from Walmart. So if you would like to see those, please stick a yes in the chat now. And we will furnish you with those after the session. Just those ones, Andrew, not the rest of your holiday snaps, okay?
Yeah, we don't need to see the ones from Disneyland. Some of those are a bit sweaty.
It was hot, wasn't it? It was hot.
It was very hot.
Just the Walmart ones. And it was good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad it did look a bit hot. Follow us, folks. If you aren't already, if you want to see these examples when they go live, Andrew posts, what do you post? Every Friday, I think, don't you?
Every Friday.
LinkedIn? Every Friday. I post all sorts of different times. But follow us, scan the QR code that's on screen now if you'd like to do that. And, well, we'll be back. It looks like we'll be back before Christmas for a Christmas special. So hopefully we'll catch you then, and stay out of the rain if you're in Sydney. Have a great week. Have a great month. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, everybody. See you soon.
Take care.